Here it comes.
Oh, we got Donna coming? We'll give him 10 more seconds.
Hey, how are you?
All righty. Good deal. All righty. Well, it looks like it is now 7 o'clock, and I believe we have all the members here we're going to have tonight, so I'd like to call tonight's planning board meeting to order. If you'd all please rise with me, and we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. If you'd all please bow your heads with me, I'll give an invocation. Dear Lord, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come here tonight and meet on behalf of the town. We'd like to ask for your blessing over this meeting, and we'd also like to ask for your guidance and direction in the decisions we make tonight. For us in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Item number 3 on the agenda is the approval of the May 27th, 2025 Planning Board meeting minutes. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review those. If there are no corrections, we'll have a floor open for a motion.
I'll motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Here none. Okay, thank you. Motion is carried. Item B, regular agenda item. First up is TA 25-04. Mr. Alabar, are you handling this one?
Yes, thank you. And
Right.
that was a small typo in there. It's TA 2505. So I apologize for that. Yes,
We will note that on the agenda.
thank you. Before you tonight is a text amendment brought forth by an applicant. The applicant is represented here in the audience tonight. He can come up and speak after the staff presentation. This is proposed amendments to Land Development Ordinance Sections 3.4.1, 3.4.2, 3.4.3, and 6.8.6. G, all relating to multifamily building transparency requirements. First to lay out, the use of multifamily dwellings is a permitted use in 4 zoning districts under the LDO: the residential high, the town center, activity center, and neighborhood center. Those last 3 are all mixed-use districts, and they have their own definitions and standards and whatnot for building construction and building exteriors. So that is part of the kind of complicated nature of this request. So the following sections are sought to be changed. And I'm going kind of in reverse here, hitting the RH zoning district applicable standard first. 6.8.6. Transparency, and then the 3 mixed-use districts for the TC, the AC, and the NC districts, as noted there on the screen. And really, those 3 districts, they all repeat and say the same standard. So these group of text amendments seek to modify and reduce the minimum amounts of transparency that is required. And if you're not familiar with the term transparency, it is basically see-through glazing or glass materials, so not a opaque brick wall, for instance. The applicant seeks to change the standard across the board to a minimum of, minimum of 25% in all of the zoning districts where dwelling multifamily or multifamily apartment buildings are permitted. So in the RH district, this would seek to reduce it from 30% to 25%. And then in those 3 mixed-use districts, the TC, the AC, the NC, where the standard actually differentiates between first floors and all upper stories, to change the standard on the first floors from 40% to 25%, and then on any of the upper story floors from 35% to 25%. In the packet in your presentation is a blue line and strike-through version of the amendments that the applicant has proposed to bring forth. I'll stick back on this for a little bit. I think we'll allow the applicant to come up and maybe speak a little more to the reasons and the background behind their request for this change.
Good evening. Happy to be in front of you tonight. Once again, it's been a little while. My name is Austin Williams, and I'm a partner with Carlson Southeast, and I'm the developer of the Walbrook project. And I hope that by evidence of what we've put on the ground so far, or I hope what we have put on the ground so far is evidence that we care very much about quality and intend to continue the character of the development that we've done so far into the future as we continue to go vertical with more and more buildings. So it's certainly not our intent to dumb down or pull the standards that are in the LDO to something that the town of Rolesville would not be proud of. The reason for us finding out and wanting to address the transparency requirement in the code is because we have a rezoning that will come before you in 1 to 2 months. And that is the former Arden project, which is adjacent to Walbrook. It was approved as a high-density multifamily project that was age-restricted. We are under contract on that project with the existing owners. The former developer is not on the scene anymore. They dropped their contract. We saw an opportunity. We think that the housing is very much needed, and we think that market rate multifamily is appropriate. The reason we put this text amendment proposal in front of you today is we were frankly taken aback a bit by the 35 to 40% transparency that was in the LDO. At this point, I believe it's untested with the project, but had we looked at it and saw that it was 25%, we would have said, okay, we've got to work hard to get to that transparency. The 25% that we're proposing that be the minimum requirement moving forward is at the upper end of what we see even in the most restrictive districts, and as contained in the packet, the most restrictive transparency requirement in downtown Raleigh, for an example, where it's an urban environment where you are expecting more transparency than usual, the max is 20%, and in other municipalities, 15 to 20%, if there is a transparency requirement, is the typical range. And so 25% is on the upper end. And I did, just to make sure that, sometimes words, it's hard for me to say, provide some words and say 25% should be fine. I brought, and I've just got hard copies and I'll pass out if that's okay. These are just a couple quick examples of projects that Ellen Allred, our development manager on the multifamily side for Carlson Southeast, has delivered that are at 25%. And so I'll pass these along if I may.
Thank you. You may pass them around.
Thank you.
And lastly, before answer any questions that you may have, why would we be opposed to more than 25%? Based on a light wood frame construction type or light metal frame, which most multifamily construction is, when you start to exceed 25%, it forces some changes. Oftentimes, from a structural requirement to meet windshield and what have you, you basically are increasing the non-structural elements of the building. Therefore, it increases cost. It can increase it dramatically. And that could be a challenge. And then I think, hopefully, when you look at some of those images, you see that there is a lot of transparency. There's a lot of windows. I mean, at some point, at 30%, for example, you literally run out of areas in those rooms to place furniture in a practical manner. So, we feel like anything above 25 is extreme, and that 25 is a very practical at the upper end of the aesthetic scale for what should be required. So that's the purpose of our request tonight.
Thank you.
Any questions for me?
Yeah, the apartment complex that's in Rolesville right now, I know was built prior to our LDO. But as an example, do you have an estimate of what percentage transparency that building was built under?
I drove by there today and I was anticipating that question.
Yeah.
I've not done calculations.
Right.
A number of the primary building facades that you see from the street appear to me to be 25%.
Uh-huh.
There's some building ends, and I don't know how the staff would interpret what faces the street and what doesn't face the street. There's some ends of buildings that do face Main Street that are clearly not 25%. That would be probably difficult to dress up on the end of the building, but I think most of the areas do get to 25%, and then there are clearly some areas that don't.
And you feel like whatever you guys are working towards is going to be something similar to that visual in some respects?
Yeah, I think there'll be some similarities. I mean, there's some things aesthetically that we would wish to do different from
Right,
cobblestone.
of course.
But I think it would be in the general ballpark. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else have a question for the applicant or staff? I think my only concern, I think you covered it, and I guess staff could support that, is there have been no projects since the LDO that had to comply with this rule. Is that correct?
Correct. Under the full adoption of the LDO, we have not had a multifamily building constructed or go through site plan and vetted against these standards. Cobblestone was developed under a town center zoning district, but adopted as part of the UDO right in that 2020, 2021 period. So, yeah, I don't want to absolutely say it's apples to apples, that the cobblestone buildings are an example of either 25% or compliance with the code as it stands today either.
Were there any transparency requirements with the cobblestone that you know of?
I believe that the town center district did have that, but I haven't done the analysis to do that comparison. Number one, because it was done under the UDO. And so this is a request to change the LDO standard, which is, the numbers that we went through before, and bring them down to what Austin says is more market rate or market standard for multifamily. One of the clarities I want to make sure is clear that this would only affect, or transparency is only required when your building face is facing a public right-of-way. So all the interior sides, end of buildings, things of that nature generally would not be applicable to this, and so then the developer can do whatever percentage that they see. The standard is only applying on roadway-facing streets. And so every property, though, when you go to develop it, could be different as far as how many buildings you're going to have facing the street. If you did a lot of interior buildings, the standard would not be an issue with you. Or if you were not on a public street, if you were back a level of development, this would not be a standard that you would even have to concern yourself as a developer. So that's one of the facets to it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any other discussion on this item? All right, here no other discussion. The floor is open for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept TA 2505 as presented.
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Yes.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, on to item number 2, REZ 24-04.
Sure.
Okay.
This is rezoning 2404 for a property known as 6520 Fowler Road, 6521 Mitchell Mill Road. The applicant is present this evening and will be doing a presentation following staff's introduction here. This is a request to rezone approximately 45 acres that again spans between two of those DOT state roads there. The property currently sits within Wake County's jurisdiction and is zoned the county's R30 district. The applicant seeks to voluntarily annex this through an annexation petition that will go to the Board of Commissioners, and then rezone the property to the residential high zoning district as a conditional zoning district. So this is a request that's coming forth with the concept plan and a set of proposed conditions of approval. Those conditions, just in a real bullet form here, are compliance with the concept plan, which is on the screen right now, an excerpt from that, a list of prohibited uses, commitment to the maximum of 100 single-family detached lots, so that would be the upper maximum yield for this project. Committing to certain architectural standards for the homes, for the buildings. Committing to creating a pollinator garden that would be maintained by the HOA on an HOA open space lot. And then other community amenities, some of which are seen on this, such as a pedestrian network, both sidewalk and off-road trails, including a connection to the adjacent Broadmoor subdivision to its due west, which on this picture would be due south. It's that red dashed line. Future land use map calls this area out as a portion of medium density residential. The traffic impact analysis, which we do have Matt Peach here from Stantec, who performed the study, and he would be able to answer any specific questions, estimates just over 1,000 daily trips for this subdivision project. And there are some recommended improvements both to Rolesville Road at Mitchell Mill and Fowler, and the two driveways that this proposed subdivision would have. It would propose a driveway at both Fowler Road and at Mitchell Mill Road, which you can see on the drawing plan, west or left and right. Staff's analysis finds that this proposed single-family detached housing would fit the medium-density residential land use description, so that is a consistency there. The circulation network enables equal access to two of these thoroughfare roadways, so it does not put all traffic onto one or the other of them. It does split the traffic flow to both of those existing roads. And then the pedestrian network and connectivity that I mentioned before to the nearby Broadmoor subdivision would provide accessibility and ways to just move by foot or bike, outside of the neighborhood and not just within this neighborhood. Staff is recommending approval of this rezoning as it does meet all of these consistency items there with the adopted comprehensive plan. And the applicant is here to make a presentation. And we're going to switch screens here.
Amazing technology. Good evening. I'm Collier Marsh with Parker Poe at 301 Fayetteville Street. Here on behalf of the applicant, which is Hopper Residential, I've got Bill Harrell and Pam Porter here with our team to answer any questions that you may have on this project. Mike did a great job of taking a lot of the points I wanted to make, so I just want to hit a few more details and then answer any questions that you may have. Always good to orient everybody with the site and surrounding area. It's about a 45-acre site in Wake County, but immediately adjacent to I guess about a year ago, a project I worked on, formerly the Woodleaf rezoning. It's now being called Broadmoor. It's a project by Pulte that's in the development stage now. And so that's on its western border and informed a lot of the decisions that we made with this project and what the appropriate scale of residential was here. So we are proposing a rezoning and an accompanying annexation with this request. Always important to think about the comprehensive plan and its guidance for a site. We are medium density residential. That description says predominantly single family. There are situations where you can have greater intensity. You can have townhomes or even up to apartments in this designation. The vision there is overall density of 3 to 5 units per acre. So with that guidance in mind, this is the summary of our proposal. Now, we are seeking only single-family detached residential here. We're not asking for some of those more intense uses. Our density is actually on the lower side as well. It's 2.2 units per acre. So you can see our concept plan on the right-hand side with the street network and the areas where lots are envisioned shown in that brown color. Just the orientation of the site and the width kind of dictates the layout here with the right-hand side, really one street going through loaded with homes on either side, and enough room for really one bend with that turning radius. And so it kind of told us how this site should lay out. The good news is that leads to a lower density use than a lot of projects that have come to the town in recent years. So again, at 2.2 units per acre. We have a pedestrian network with connections to the Greenway corridor to the south. That red line on our site would be a Greenway connection there. Blue lines, which may be hard to see this far out, there's a private trail system as well within the community. One item I want to focus on that's a little, I'd say misleading, but just kind of shows a gap in the town's code here, or kind of a transition area. We're seeking the residential high density designation, the RH, but really it's not the perfect fit because there's a bit of a kind of a jump that your code takes that I wanted to point out. So just for comparison here, a couple of data points. Within your RM zoning, you can do what's called a cluster development. And that asks for 40% of open. If you can get 40% of open space, there are different standards that apply. But we can't quite get to that 40% of open space, but we do have 33, which is meaningful for this site. However, with our 33%, we're actually proposing larger lots in greater dimensions than a lot of the dimensions that would be allowed in that RM district. So within RM zoning, you can have 3 to 5 units per acre. We're still only asking for 2.2. So the minimum lot with the baseline in the RM district is 80, but with that cluster, with that larger open space, you can go down to 50. Well, we're proposing 75, closer to that larger dimension. And then minimum lot size, the standard is 15,000 in RM, but again, with that cluster, you can go to 8,000. We're going to 9,000. And then for some additional context with how the code has evolved over time, again, I worked on that Woodleaf project, now Broadmoor to the west. What's really interesting about that one was it's got 2 districts. It's got the RH, like we're proposing, and the RM. But at the time that was approved, the RH was townhomes, and so you could have that whole district within Woodleaf was all townhomes in RH. The RM district was all single family, but what's interesting is that their lots are about half the size of what we're proposing. So they had several that were about 4,900 square feet, and then the remainder were 6,100 square feet. And then you look at our project as the code has evolved, and we're at 9,000. So I just want to point out all those kind of different measurements to show that when you actually look at the built context of this area, although it sounds like we're proposing a high-density residential district, we're actually proposing something far less dense than the project that was recently approved to the west. And so it creates a really good transition as you're moving away from Rolesville Road and moving out into those undeveloped areas. And so we think it's a good fit, especially at 2.2 units per acre. It's a modest project and should offer housing options and housing types that you're not seeing in new developments that are being proposed. Getting to the zoning conditions, Mike covered them well, but they're all the ones that you'd expect with the single-family development. We have to conform with that plan that we shared, and so we're held to those details. Only single-family homes in this project. The max is 100 homes on this 45-ish acre site. That's how we get to 2.2. In reality, it's probably going to be a little less when we get to the fine engineering of the project. We've got architectural commitments that you'd expect for any project, with the siding requirements, raised foundations, masonry treatment, and details like that. We've got a pollinator garden included within the site, and then our community amenities here have to be at least one tot lot, playground, and then a dog park. So with that, I think that's a good summary of the project, but we're of course happy to answer any questions that you may have on it.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions for the applicant or staff? I think the only questions I had were answered. I was curious about the why you went with RH instead of RM, and I think seeing the graphics you had helped me understand that, and I think the 9,000 square foot lots would be a good size in that area. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Okay. No other questions, comments. Floor will be open for a motion.
That we approve REZ-2404 as stated.
All right, we have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Make sure we're noting the consistency with the comprehensive plan.
I'm sorry,
Just make sure we're noting the consistency with the comprehensive plan.
I need to say that?
Just that just make the statement. That is
Oh,
good.
to read it, okay.
Thank you.
The-
Due to the elements of consistency noted above. Okay.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Have 4 ayes and 1 nay. Motion carries. All right, on to item C, the communications, the town's planning department report.
Sure. I don't have anything formal this evening for you, but just a couple of highlights about some development activity I thought might be interesting. Currently this month, the Technical Review Committee is reviewing 4 construction infrastructure drawings for 4 separate residential neighborhoods that are on version 3 or version 4. And so that's usually meaning we're very close to final approval of those. And once those construction drawings are approved, the developer has a pre-construction meeting, and then they hit the ground running and break ground. And so we're going to have a number of new projects, new neighborhoods go under construction, which is pretty exciting. That's also ticked up the amount of pre-construction meetings that the planning department has been attending. This week we have 2, one tomorrow it'll come to me. I forget what it is. It's a Fifth Third's Bank at the Walbrook development. And on Friday we have another pre-construction. I think that is for the Broadmoor community, which was referenced in this rezoning case there down on Rolesville Road. So a lot of activity here on the construction end. And if you remember some of the updates from months ago or a year ago was we're hitting this point in the evolution of development where we do the entitlement works, a lot of rezonings, et cetera, and then we go through the planning and then the construction infrastructure part, and then they hit construction. Well, we're heavily hitting that construction part right now with a lot of projects going to be going to site construction. So a lot more of that activity here in the future. Other than that, we've had several rezonings submitted in the last few months, but there's going to be some news on one of them pretty soon. And then next month you should have another, I think you'll have another rezoning before you, and 1 or 2 others this fall. So hopefully we'll have a lot more meetings. We won't be dropping meetings here for lack of activity here coming forth. We also have several other text amendments in the pipeline that you'll see, at least one more that you'll see probably next month.
All right. Thank you. Next item is town attorney's report.
I have nothing to report. Thank
No
you.
report. All right. Item number 3, other business. You like to say anything about staying on?
Well, I guess so right now, I'm gonna go ahead and fulfill my term till December of this year, so.
Great.
I know we did a ceremony last month, but I'll be here through December, so, yeah.
Okay.
So you get another cake?
Yeah, yeah. Cupcakes on me, so, yeah. That's right, yeah. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. We're glad to have you on. All right. Last item on the agenda is the adjournment.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
All right. Mr. Pierce has made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Thank you.